Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So this tutorial is a continuation of our C++ series. So in this tutorial we're going to go over loops in C++. So what are loops in programming? So loops are just a structure that allows you to execute a certain action or code repeatedly until a certain condition is met. For example, you might want to create a program that continuously asks the user for a certain input. So you want to repeat asking the user for a certain input until the user inputs the right value that you want. So to do this, you want to just continuously repeat a certain code over and over again until a certain condition is met. So that's what basically a for loop, loops are in programming. So it just allows you to do something repeatedly until a certain condition is met. So that's all loops are in programming. So we'll begin with the first types. In C++, there are two main types of loops. There are while loops and there are for loops. So in this tutorial we'll go over while loops, and then in the next tutorial we'll go over the other variation of while loop, and then finally we'll look at the for loop. So let's begin with the while loops. So while loops this is the syntax of a while loop. So it is a while, and then parentheses, you specify a certain condition. This condition is a Boolean expression that returns a true or a false. So if as long as the condition is true, then the code will be executed, and then we'll do something, we do incrementation or decrementation, right? So if you have not checked my video on incrementation and decrementation, you can go back and watch that video. So I will check the certain condition. As long as the condition is true, then the code within the while block will continuously be executed. Okay, so now let me just go ahead and actually show you this in a much more simpler way using a flowchart diagram. So we'll start our program, right? We'll start from here, and then we'll check for a certain condition. If the condition is true, if it's true, we'll execute the code under the while block, and then we'll do incrementation or decrementation. And then after we do that, we move back up here using the value that you have incremented. We pass the values to the condition again. If it's true, we'll do the same process again until this condition turns to be false. If this condition is false, we'll simply end our loop. So to explain to you this, I'll use an example. So I'll just bring this slide over here. So for example, we want to print a certain value until from 0 until all numbers that are less than 3. Okay, so we have up here we have initialized the variable, initialize and declare the variable int I is 0. So this is our condition. I is less than 10. I is less than 3, right? In the first loop, loops are known as iterations, right, in programming. So I'll refer to them as iterations. So in the first iteration, I is 0, right? So is 0 less than 3? This is very true. So if as long as it's true, we'll print out I on the screen. So on the output it will be 0. And then we'll increment I. So increment basically means we add 1 to I. So if I was 0, now I plus plus will be I equals to 1. So after that increment, we'll move up here. So now I is 1. So we check, is 1 less than 3? This is true. So we'll print out 1, and then we'll increment 1 to become 2. And then we pass the 2 through our condition again. Is 2 less than 3? This is true. We'll print out 2, and then we'll increment I to be 3. So during the third iteration, I is 3, and already on the screen you have printed out 0, 1 and 2. So we check, is 3 less than 3? Because I is 3 on the third iteration, right? On the third iteration, right? So is 3 less than 3? This is not true. So 3 is not less than 3, right? So the condition is false. So we'll simply end jump off out of that loop. That's what for loops can be useful. So to show you this in code, I'll take this exact concept that we have discussed and I'll put it in code so that you guys can see what I actually mean by that. So I'll go ahead and create a variable I, which is initialize it to 0, and then while we just say while, we'll specify I is less than 3, right? That's our condition. If I is less than 3, we specify a block. So we want to do cout, and then we want to print I. I also want to end that line, and then we want to increment I plus plus, and then we'll save that. So I'll save this and run the code. So I'll compile and run the code, and let's see what we get. So I'll just bring my terminal over here and try to make this big so you guys can see. So you can see we got 0, 1 and 2. So on during the fourth the fourth iteration, I is 3 and 3 isn't less than 3, so we didn't get the output we wanted. So we got 0. So let's go back to this diagram. So I is 0 on the first iteration. 0 is less than 3, so we printed out 0, right? And then we got this value. We got 0 on the first iteration, and then we incremented I to become 1. So is 1 less than 3? Yes, 1 is less than 3, so we move down here and printed out 1, which we got 1 on the second line. And then we incremented I to become 2, right? And then we check 2 is 2 less than 3. Yes, we printed at I, we got 2. Yes, so now we have incremented I to become 3 on the fourth iteration. So is 3 less than 3? No, 3 is not less than 3, but 3 is equals to 3. So this condition is false. So we simply ended our loop and we got this over here. So this is what for loops can be used for. I hope you get the basic idea of what a for loop is. So as long as the condition is true, the code inside of the while loop block will continuously get executed. So that's what basically a for loop is all about. So let's go ahead and actually increase our knowledge on this. So let's try to print out all even numbers between 1 and 100. Okay, so 100. So whenever I use the less than or equal sign, you have to we want to print until 100. So one way to do, you can say is less or equals to 100, because we want 100 included. If you use this, 100 will be excluded, right? This is just simple mathematics. So we can say equals to, or we can just put this to be 101. So you can choose what to do. I will just keep is less than or equal. And then if it's less than or equal, I want to do something. I'll just remove this part for now. I'll just say if I'm printing out even numbers. So if I modulus 2, if I divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, because the modulus stands towards the remainder. If the remainder is 0, a number divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, that number is just obviously even number. So we print I and then we end that line. Okay, and then down here we'll do our incrementation. So in loops, you can use post incrementation or pre-incrementation. It really doesn't have any effect. If you didn't check my video on post incrementation and pre-incrementation, you can go back and watch that video. So you can do something like this. This should work. So I'll just save the code and then run the code again. And this should return to us all even numbers between 0 and 100. And you can see we have all the numbers here. All of them are even numbers. Okay. You can see we have all these even numbers over here. So one thing you can see 0. We have 0. 0 is, I don't think 0 is an even number. Okay. So but you can see we have all the other even numbers here for 78, 80, 82, 84, 86, 88, 90. You can see all of them are even numbers until 100 itself is an even number. So that's how we can use for loops. So as long as you want to do something continuously in a loop, you can just use for loops. Imagine we were to do this by writing code for each number. This will take us like forever. So using a for loops, we can automate things by simply using a loop. So I thought you can use post incrementation or pre incrementation, so you can also do this and you should get the same output. If you haven't checked my video on post incrementation and pre incrementation, you can go back and refer to that video. So that's all about while loops. So as long as this condition is true, every code will be executed here, and then we will increment this value. So why should we increment this value? So if you don't increment this value, you run into something known as an infinite loop, because I will continuously be 0 and 0 will continuously be less than 100. So your code will run continuously, and then this could lead to your PC crashing, or the IDE you are using to crash, or your PC to freeze. So when I was studying programming, I have run into infinite loops a couple of times. So guys, be careful. Always remember to increment this. This is what I usually used to forget this when I was starting to code. So this is easy to forget. So always remember to increment or decrement a value. So we can also use increment, right? So we can also copy this. I'll just cut that and paste it here. So I is 100. So as long as I is greater than 0, we want to check for a certain value, and then here we can decrement. So I have just done the same thing, but I is 100. So on the first iteration, it will be 100. So 100 is divisible by 2 with no remainder, so we'll print out 100, and then later 100 minus 1, which will be 99. We'll pass 99 through the condition. 99 is greater than 0, so we'll be doing this until we get 1, because 1 will be the point whereby I mean, get 0, right? It's till I is 0, where 0 is not less than 0, and then this condition will be false, and will stop our execution of our for loop. So you can use incrementation or decrementation. So you can just think of what you want to do, and you can come up with the logic. So you can see we have the even numbers. So just make this huge. We have the even numbers, but in a reversed order, starting from 198 and so on. So that's incrementation and decrementation in while loops. Okay, so this is all I wanted to talk to you about in this video. So in the next video, we'll look at another variation of while loops. This is known as do while loops. So that's what we'll be looking at in the next tutorial. So guys, see you there. Please don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to my channel. So one of the ways you can support me is just giving this video a thumbs up and hitting the like button. That I really appreciate that. Thanks for watching.